brand is also an example of confidence. So the way you feel about your brand is also oftentimes the confidence that you show up with. I'm honored to lead today's Mosai podcast. My name is Juliet Wright. I'm a parallel entrepreneur in Grand Island, Nebraska. And today we're going to dive right into two topics that have been a passion of mine, especially over this past year as I've written these two books. They may not seem like they go together, but I promise you they do. So stick around, and I really hope that you will have immense breakthrough in just a short time that we're spending together today. So my first book is called Coming in Hot, which is about branding. And my second book is called Red Thread, which is all about breaking through shame. So you may be thinking to yourself, how do those two things go together? They seem like very different worlds. They seem like very different businesses and industries and things you could never talk about on stage or on a podcast together. I probably would have thought the same thing until this year I dove into both. So I want you to think about branding, your brand right now as it sits today. Now, a brand is more than just a logo. It's more than a color palette or a font. It's more than your website or your podcast graphics or your social media, but all of those pieces come together to kind of build a huge pie, a piece of a pie that each individual slice is going to represent a part of your brand. Your brand can go as intricate as the voicemail messages you leave, your email signature, how you wear your hair, or if you iron your suit jacket. Those are all parts of your brand that make up not only your business, but also who you are as a person. I'm passionate to tell everyone I meet that you are responsible for building and defining your brand. And if you leave it up to the world, I promise you they will do it for you, but it's not going to be a clear representation of who you are. So I want you to think of your brand as it is now. And we're going to go back a little bit. So brand is also an example of confidence. So the way you feel about your brand is also oftentimes the confidence that you show up with. I want you to think back to your first day of school. On your first day of school, most of us had similar experiences. You maybe spent the week or two. For my family, it was maybe the day or two before school started, making sure that you had new clothes, making sure that you had a backpack, making sure that your name was written on your pencils. And the point was that by having everything new and fresh and clean and organized, some of those butterflies of walking into the classroom on that first day were minimized. Some of that anxiety, some of those fears were silenced because you felt your best. I remember going shopping for my first day of school outfit, again, a couple days, maybe a week before, and I remember laying it out on my bed. My new shirt, my new skirt, my new socks, my new shoes, my pencil bag, my backpack. I remember laying it out and not touching it. As tempting as it was to wear it that week before to go play, I kept it nice because I knew with that outfit on, with that new backpack, with those pencils that were razor sharp, I could walk into that day fully confident, my head held high, ready to learn, ready to make new friends, ready to cause a little bit of trouble. So your brand is that same thing. It can either make or break the confidence that you have when you walk into a sales meeting, when you send a proposal, when you get up on a stage. If you feel like that brand is rock solid, if you can't wait to show it off, you're going to sit up taller, you're going to smile bigger, you're going to shake that hand with confidence because you have that backing of that brand. Now, on the other side, a brand can do the opposite. Let's say that you're sitting on a plane ready to take off. You have this great conversation with the person sitting next to you. You feel like your businesses would be a perfect match for each other. You see the dollar signs in your mind, and then they ask for your website. I've heard this story over and over that the door plane can't close fast enough because they are ashamed of the website that person is fidgeting to pull up. All of a sudden, your heart rate might increase knowing that the website you have, maybe the images, the tone of voice, is not going to match the conversation you just had in person. It's incredible to be charismatic. I love when people say I could sell ice to an Eskimo. But does your brand, does your behind the scenes match the energy, the charisma that you can bring in person? That's ultimately what I do day to day. And I have found that there is so much shame around people's branding. So again, that's how we're going to tie the two together today. So again, close your eyes. Think of your current brand right now. Your logo, your font, your color palette. Think of any merchandise you have, polos, hats, jackets with your brand on them. Think about your signage outside your building, your website, your social media, your podcast graphics. Think of the quality maybe of your audiobook that you've recorded, or even the cover of the book that you have out on shelves. I want you to think of that, and I want you to think of how you feel. We're going to walk through this 7-step process that I've outlined in red thread, but I want to walk it through on your brand because that's something we all have in common. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a speaker, an author, you may have a brand for your book. You might have a brand for your podcast, but odds are you have a brand for yourself and your business. So whichever one you want to think about now is totally fine. So the 7 steps we'll get through here in about 10 minutes. It's going to be really quick. And by the end of it, my goal is that you feel a weight lifted off your shoulders. So let's get started. Step 1 is called the loop topic. The loop topic is something about your brand, or you can go into marketing or advertising that you feel like is spinning in your head or heavy in your heart. It may be something that you think about often. It may be something that when it comes up in a meeting, or maybe you go to a conference and if it comes up on stage, you just cringe a little bit. It's something that you feel like is almost following you around. Let's, for example, use the example of a promo video. You know how important video is. You know that when you can connect through your audience through a lens, it's going to be so much more impactful than through text. But you also know that your video is 10 years outdated. You don't even look the same. The quality is not where it needs to be to match the confidence of your brand now. Let's use that as an example, but I want you to think of what you have, what your loop topic is in your head. So first step, loop topic, something spinning in your mind, heavy on your heart, something that seems to follow you, maybe for months, maybe for years. Do you have that in your head? All right. Step 2 is called the social script. So this is the often pre-rehearsed script that we have that we can throw out at a moment's notice. It often doesn't have much emotion. Sometimes it's even pre-rehearsed. So if somebody said, related to that loop topic, Juliet, how are your videos going? Did you make some like you were intending last year? That social script moves the conversation. It might sound something like, oh, I didn't. It's just been a busy year. Or it might sound something like, oh, this recession is just crushing our customers. Maybe next year. Or it might sound something like, nope, still on the to-do list. So I want you to think back to that loop topic you have and think of something that's a social script that you would say to move the conversation along. If somebody, maybe an acquaintance, a coworker, asked about that, what would you say? Now, step 3, we're going to go a step deeper. This is called the real story. So this is if I was a close friend, maybe a business coach of yours, maybe someone here in the Mosai Network, and I said, Juliet, what's really going on? Why haven't you made those videos? I know you're busy. We're all busy. But what's really going on? For step 3, I want you to think of what that real story is. Odds are it's going to have some emotion to it, maybe some fears, some real life examples. So about this video, the real story might sound like, I know I need to do videos, but right now I'm not happy with the way I look. Maybe I'm not happy with my weight. Maybe I'm not happy with maybe I don't feel good on the outside. Maybe I've had some personal things in my own life and I don't like to watch myself on camera. Maybe I'm comparing myself to others. Maybe I'm afraid I'm not going to be good enough. It's oftentimes not about the equipment or the time. There's usually something deeper. Maybe there's someone that I'm following and I just keep them on a pedestal. And I just know no matter what I do, it's not going to be as good as them. If you keep going deeper, it's probably not just the videos. Maybe you feel like your business will never be as good as them, or your appearance will never be as good as them, or your charisma will never be as good as them, whatever it is. If you really get to the real story and could open up and be vulnerable about your loop topic, it probably goes a step or 2 or 3 or 4 deeper than you're leading on. So I'd encourage you to take a minute and think about what's the real story related to this loop topic. What's holding you back? What's stopping you? Why is it looping? Now go a layer deeper and a layer deeper, and it's going to hurt, but go even a layer deeper. Go deep until odds are it's not even as related as you would think. It could even go back to years in the past, could go back to past traumas, it could go back to history, could go back to insecurities. But that's the real story that we rarely share, but is so important. Once you feel like you know what that real story is, we're going to go to step 4. And that's really the quicksand. Step 4 is not fun, but I promise we'll get through it together. Step 4 is called the shame critic. So when you think of this loop topic from step 1, in our example, it's that I need to make videos, but I don't have time. When we really think of that, I want you to think of what are these one-line zingers that you hear in your head. They're cruel, they're mean, they're relentless. It's things that we would never say to someone else, but we say to ourselves. It's so cruel that if you heard someone say this line to someone else, you would step in because we don't talk to each other that way. So for this example, some of these one-liners, some of these shame critics might sound something like, no one cares what you have to say. You're just pretending. You're an imposter. You're not good enough. No one likes the sound of your voice. You're overweight. You're annoying. You talk too much. They may sound something like, again, you're too much. You're not enough. They might sound something like, someday, maybe you'll be good enough, but not yet. The list goes on and on. Again, no one has told us this. These are lines, these shame critic lines that we make up ourselves. They often sound like you. You'll never. You always. No one cares. I want you to take a deep breath and list out your own shame critic lies. I would challenge you, don't stop after 1 or 2. If you can list out 6 or 7, you're going to be getting to the root. They're going to hurt a little bit, but they're going to be familiar. I've done this process with over 150 individuals, and not one person did not have these shame lies. The truth is that we have them, and they're so accessible that they come to us in an instant. But rarely have we written them down or said them out loud. So let's say that my shame critic lie for not creating videos is that you're an imposter. That hurts. If I knew someone else that said that to me and they said, Juliet, I know you run a successful company. I know you have grown to a staff. I know you have gone from $3 to $3 million in 10 years, but guess what? You're an imposter. I would not be friends with that person. And I know that people who love me would have my back and even take that person out in the alley and beat him up if they had to. I don't really know those kind of friends, but I hope they would. But let's say that that's my loudest lie. So as you create your list of your shame critic, pick out the loudest one. Put a star next to it, highlight it. We call that your loudest lie. Take a deep breath. We're done with that. Then next step 5, is called the mantra exchange. So I want you to think of that loudest lie. In this example, it's you're an imposter. And I want you to look at it like it's on a piece of paper. Like it's not about you, like you're just simply subjectively looking at this. And I want you to think of the opposite. What would be the mantra if you saw that? Now we're going to flip this now from you are to I am. So for this example, the opposite of you are an imposter might sound something like, I am fully capable to talk on this topic and anything else I know. There's no right or wrong answer for this step. It's whatever the opposite sounds like to you. So take a minute and think of your loudest lie. The you are, and flip it. Now I want you to write I am in the exact opposite. So we've made it through steps 1 through 5. Your work in some ways is done, or at least the hard part is. Step 6 is my favorite. It is called the power story. The reason my book is called The Red Thread is because I believe that there's power within each of us. There's nothing more we need to learn. There's nothing more we need to gain. There's no more certifications or classes or seminars. We have the power within us. We simply have to take it back. This power has been held up in shame for so long. This power has been exhausted by this loop topic that is always spinning in our head. Can you imagine if we could pause that loop and if we could take the power back from this shame and put it towards something powerful, life-changing? That's what Mosai is all about, right? It's there for us. We just have to do this work to get it back. So step 6 is called the power story. And really the uniqueness of this step is that all we're going to do is look at ourselves from that third-party perspective. Now this perspective may be a loving parent, grandparent. It could be someone who idolizes us when we're on stage, or maybe writes us letters as they read our books. This could be someone like God who's looking in at us. It could be a fly on the wall. Whatever you want to think about. But this third-party perspective is so powerful. You know yourself. You know your struggles. You know what you've overcome. But we often minimize that. We use minimizing words like sort of and kind of and once in a while. But for this power story, we're putting all those minimizing words to the side. And I want you to think superhero. Think powerful. Think courageous. Think of the people you admire and how you would talk about them. We're going to keep this third-party perspective all the way throughout. And we're going to end with our mantra exchange. So I'm going to give you an example of this power story about Juliet, who is just putting off making these videos, which is something that is so true. I'm going to give you an example of this power story, and then I'm going to give you a chance to think of yours, to write it down, to either read it to yourself or even better, have someone else read it to you. And if at any point you would like me to tell you your power story, I would love to jump on a Zoom call and tell it to you. So this is what a power story looks like. I once knew this incredible woman. This incredible woman was busy from the moment she woke up to the moment she went to bed. She was busy raising kids. She was busy raising businesses. She was busy leading employees. She was busy dreaming for the future. This woman is incredible. Her mind never stops. There is always another idea to do. There is always something else to invent. There is always something pulling her away. But in spite of having a full plate, this woman is wise. This woman prioritizes what is important, and she does the hard work. She doesn't shy away from what she's uncomfortable with, but instead she faces it head on. And some days when it'd be easier to just stay in bed or go shopping or go on vacation, she does the hard work first. She sets up her camera and she gets in front of it. She creates the videos that she knows are going to outlive her. She creates the videos that she knows the world needs. She's not selfish. She does not think of her own image and her own imperfections. Instead, this woman thinks of others. She thinks of the women who will need this, the men who need to rise, the young entrepreneurs like she used to be, and she creates these videos for them. And while, yes, she is busy, she is also dedicated. She is strong, she is wise. She has spent the last 20 years perfecting her craft. She is anything but an imposter. Instead, this woman is intelligent, she is clear, and above all else, she is more than qualified to speak on this topic and any topic that she knows about. And this woman is you. Or in this case, this woman is me. Now it's your turn. It's your turn to write your power story. Start with, I once knew A. I once knew a woman. I once knew a man. I once knew a child. I once knew a boss. And then write your power story as if you're watching yourself, your highlight reel, on a big screen. I want you to remove yourself and think of all the things you've overcome, the things that you haven't shied away from. Think of the ways that you have shown up even when it wasn't easy. Use words like always, in spite of, fearlessly, courageously, confidently, because that's true. And then write your power story about your loop topic. Think of it from that perspective. And then once you're done, take a deep breath, maybe step away from a moment, and read your power story to yourself, or like I mentioned, have someone read it to you, someone you love. And when someone else reads your story for you, I encourage you just sit back, close your eyes, absorb this story, and then think to yourself, wow, what an incredible person that is. I want to be friends with that person. I want to work with that person. I want to invite that person to stand on my stage or be a guest on my podcast. I would read that person's book. I would love to take that person out to coffee. That's typically what I hear when people hear their own power story. It's important work. This is Q2. It's not urgent, but it's important. And I challenge you in the next 24 hours, write out your own power story. There's just one step left. That's step 7, and it's just called the perspective pause. So all that means is to think about it. Take the time and think about, how does this process make you feel? How does this power story make you feel? Were there any aha moments? Is there anything you're grateful for? Anyone you're grateful for? Even if it's you. For this example, I am grateful for the team that I have that can take things off my plate. They're often behind the scenes and don't get the credit, but I'm grateful that if I show up, they can help me do everything else. I give myself grace that I'm growing in this and I'm not perfect, but I have spent time and time and time to get better in front of the camera. I'm also giving myself grace that it's not going to be perfect, but that's okay. That would be my perspective pause. So I hope this podcast was helpful. I hope that you think of your brand in a new way. The first step is always to see where you're at now, your base point with your brand. Just like before you would start working with a personal trainer, you have to step on that scale. Before you're ready to elevate your brand, you have to be realistic of where you are now. And it's okay. Wherever you're at, it's okay. If your brand is homemade, congratulations. You did it. You made a brand even if that wasn't your expertise. If your brand is outdated, congratulations. Your business has survived when so many others haven't. If you have outgrown your brand, congratulations. That is incredible that your company has grown to the way that it has. When it comes to your brand, there's nothing to be ashamed about. It's always good to elevate, but first we have to see where you're at. That second piece, after you take a clear look at where you're at, is you have to remove shame. You have to think of yourself from that third-party perspective. Because while your brand is for you, it's that confidence you feel when you walk into a networking event or a sales meeting when you present on Mosai. While that is important, it's also for the outside world. They're already seeing you from that third-party perspective. They're already seeing the power, the magnetism, the magic. They're already seeing it. And you have to be able to see it as well. That's your job. And oftentimes, the thing that's holding us back is all within. It's that loop topic. It's the social script. We're not telling the real story. We're listening to that shame critic. We're not building out the mantras. We're diminishing our power. We're not looking at our power story, and we're not pausing for perspective. So, today, I challenge you, make this the first day that you gain that power back. Go through these steps over and over about different loop topics you have. Whether it is in your business, in your personal life, your marriage, your family, whatever you feel is looping in your head or heavy on your heart, we have to stop the loop. So I hope this is helpful. I would love to connect more. You can find me on julietspeaks.com, tallycreative.com, redthreadproject.com, and the Juliet Wright on Instagram. Let's keep this conversation going. Let me help you break through this shame, elevate, and reach your potential. Thank you.